I never had enough time. I'm a working parent with a demanding career who wants to do it all. I knew this would all be possible if there was just an extra day every week. Which is why today I'm initiating a global campaign to expand the week to 8 days. Actually, no, I'm not. Because if we did have an extra day, it would end up filling up, leaving us bogged down and even more overwhelmed than we already are. Instead, I'm going to show you 4 incredibly simple habits to implement that save me at least 24 hours a week. The first thing I did was face this fact. My life was chaotic and it didn't need to be. Every day I had no idea what I was doing other than going to the various appointments and meetings that had appeared on my calendar. In the time in between, I was scrambling trying to figure out the most important work that I could do, only to initiate the task just in time to have to go to my next meeting. When you're in reactive mode and trying to find something to work on, you are probably going to find something that feels urgent, and most people default to what is constantly and angrily demanding their attention, their inbox. Not having a plan also results in a high level of decision fatigue. When you are constantly making decisions, you can experience cognitive fatigue, which results in you being unable or being really slow to make any decisions at all. The solution to this is very simple. Become a planner. This is not as complicated or as boring as it sounds. All you have to do is take 60 seconds once a week to write down a list for each area of your life. For most of you, that list is going to begin with a list for work. Ignoring all of the meetings, write down a list of things that can help you make progress in the projects that you're working on or the career goals you're working towards. It doesn't need to be 20 things. Ideally, it's going to be 5 things. Then, for each of those 5 things, just pick a day of the week to do them. I suggest assigning 1 thing per day because, first of all, over the course of my career, I have learned that everything takes so much longer than you think it's going to take, but also that things tend to come up. And you don't want to find things left undone because you didn't allocate for that stuff happens time. It's possible that you have more than 5 things on that list. You can keep a side list of things that you can work on if a corporate miracle happens and an hour-long meeting cancels at the last minute and truly adds an hour back into your day. Of course, your only list should not be work because you are much more than your job. Considering what is important to you and what you want your life to look like, you might consider writing additional lists. One thing I enjoy and is really important to me is to eat primarily home-cooked meals. So every week I make a simple meal plan. Actually, I started asking ChatGPT to make my meal plan for me so I don't even have to think about it. I just
let the robots decide.
If only I can get them to cook for me now. The fantastic thing about this is once it's done, you get to work on autopilot for the rest of the week. At the beginning of the day, review your list and then do what past you wanted future you to do. No more wasting time constantly making decisions and no more wasting time by defaulting to your email. Planning also enables the next habit, which allows you to save an enormous amount of time each week and look and feel like you have your shit together, even if you don't. Using strategies you learned playing Tetris. Elder millennials like me grew up with this struggle. How to make a bunch of different shapes stacked together without any gaps to clear lines. And if you did leave any holes, the pieces would all stack up, you'd hit the top, and you'd lose the game. Your calendar is a game of Tetris. Have you ever returned to your desk after, say, a planning meeting and struggled to get back on task with your actual job? If you have, that means you are totally normal and you struggle with something that all humans struggle with, that is context switching. On average, it will take your brain 15 minutes to refocus and find flow when you are switching tasks, and especially when you are switching the way in which you are using your brain, as in a different context. That means if you are sneaking in 30 minutes of work in between 30 minutes of meetings, your brain is literally spending half the day trying to refocus. So the first strategy we want to take from Tetris with our calendar is to minimize context switching. When you played Tetris, you probably tried to stack all of the different pieces in similar areas, and that is essentially batching. You will find a ton of efficiency gains when you start task batching. For example, instead of generating multiple ad hoc reports during the week, you can batch them and do them all at once. This also applies to your personal life. I have saved 3 hours a week by meal prepping on Sunday, because I only have to set up, cut up all the vegetables, prepare everything, and then do all of the cleaning once a week instead of every single day throughout the week. And that brings me to the second Tetris strategy to optimize your time. When you play Tetris, you probably don't just let the pieces fall wherever they will. You will very quickly lose the game. Instead, you probably found a system where you can stack as many pieces without leaving any gaps, even if it meant most of the pieces were on one side of the playing screen. This is exactly what time blocking is. Instead of calendar chaos with gaps all over the place, you consolidate your time to minimize gaps, decrease context switches, and maximize your productivity. Personally, I use my Google Calendar in order to do time blocking and to schedule the daily tasks that I establish I need to do. I tend to put my work blocks into the morning where I find I have the best productive and focused work time, and leave my afternoons open for meetings and collaboration. I know in the corporate world, this can feel easier said than done because your coworkers are putting meetings on your calendar all the time. And when a colleague schedules a mandatory client meeting over your work block, you have to go to the meeting. There are two things you can do. Like I just mentioned, you can actually schedule in your work blocks so that you appear to be busy during that time. However, we know sometimes people completely ignore those things. So the alternate thing you could do is you could consolidate by working on client-related tasks for that particular client. So while you are changing the actual tasks, the context remains the same. With all of that in place, and just like when you got really good at Tetris, you probably weren't just playing the active block and the playing area. You probably started looking at the next block preview to take into consideration. And that leads me to the third way we can optimize output, and that is with time stacking. I think of tasks as fitting into one of two categories: active tasks and passive tasks. Most of your work is going to fall into the category of active tasks. These require your complete attention, effort, and cognitive load. Think of things like presenting, preparing a training, or driving. These are activities you do not want to be even attempting to do something else while you are doing them. However, you probably have several passive tasks that are part of your day. These are tasks that require your attention, your effort, or your cognitive load, but not all three at the same time, at least not sustained. You can both stand in the coffee line to get your morning caffeine hit and review your to-do list for the day or answer a few emails. There is an important distinction to make when we are talking about task stacking, though. There is a difference between task stacking and being distracted. Being distracted is not a good look. For example, you've probably noticed when a coworker is completely distracted and replying to emails in a meeting, it seems kind of rude, it seems kind of disrespectful. Not the vibe we're going for. Or maybe you've been for dinner with a friend who has constantly been checking their emails instead of being present with you. And no judgment, but maybe you've even been that friend. The primary culprit of distraction is something that you put in your pocket every day. And no, it's not your hair tie. I'm talking about your phone. Our phones have been designed by the leading neuroscientists and designers in the world to hack your brain, hijack your dopamine supply, and keep you in a constant state of distraction. It's all quite sinister when you think of it. When we pair this with an always-on instant reply work culture, we have an extremely toxic mix. If you feel like you never have time, I dare you to look at the screen time on your phone. What you find might horrify you. When I first looked at mine, I thought, oh, that's where all my spare time went. I am definitely not alone. The average American reaches for their phone 96 times a day. That's about once every 10 minutes. And on average, we spend 3 hours and 15 minutes on our phones. But many people I know in the corporate world spend at least double that. If you're feeling brave, check your screen time and drop it into the comments. No matter what your screen time is, I want you to ask yourself one crucial question. Is this how I want to be spending my time? Don't get me wrong, I'm not proposing you throw your phone away. I mean, how else would you watch my videos? But putting your phone away and setting digital boundaries won't just improve your life, it will stop you from wasting a ton of time you had zero intention of wasting. Since each app on your phone has been built with this single goal to hack your attention, you need to take back control. There are multiple ways you can do this. You can use the digital wellness tools on your phone. You can leave your phone in your bag or in another room when you are doing deep focus work. Or if you want to take drastic action, you can get a phone jail on Amazon. Personally, I find deleting apps and using the do not disturb feature to be incredibly helpful. Which brings us to the next time-saving habit. And this is one I think 90% of people can implement to save countless hours a week, both at work and in their personal lives. But before I tell you what it is, let me ask you a few questions. Do you accept every meeting you are invited to? Do you take on all of the work and projects you're asked to? And do you sacrifice your own time to do things that other people want you to do or expect you to do, even if you have no interest in them? If you answered yes to most or all of those questions, you need to start saying no. You were probably raised to believe that working hard is what would get you ahead, and that in order to be liked, you needed to be a yes person and never disappoint anyone. But there is a difference between being a yes person and being a doormat. Do you need to take on the extra reporting, join the social committee at work, or be the unofficial and overlooked trainer for all the new members joining your team? Unless those activities have a direct line to getting you a pay increase, a promotion, or visibility boosting praise, the answer is probably not. Curating your time is a 1-minute habit you cannot succeed without. I can almost guarantee that there are things you do every single day that you can either stop doing or say no to. Things you can delegate to someone else on your team, which also helps you develop an important leadership skill. There may also be things that you can automate in your day, such as scheduling reports that you run or using a plugin in Zoom to automatically take notes for you in meetings. And especially in your personal life, there might even be tasks that you can outsource. There are 2 things I was really resistant to do, but wow, once I started doing them, I never looked back. Grocery delivery and hiring a house cleaner saves me so many hours every week. And let's just face it, at work there are some things that we might even be able to stop doing entirely and no one would even notice it. This filter also applies to new tasks that you're taking on. Unless something is helping you get that pay, promotion, or praise that you're seeking, it's probably something that you can pass on. For the things that you can't stop, delegate, or automate, determine what just needs to get done and what should be done exceptionally well because people are actually going to notice. This will free up your time at work to focus on high impact work, and you'll probably even have more free time because you stopped taking on so much extra work. This is probably something you would get an enormous time gain from really diving into, and I do that in my Career Glow Up book. So if you haven't got it yet, I'll make sure it's linked down below. The tactics I've outlined are not the hardest part for most people. What gets in the way for most people is that being busy equals being successful. People take on a lot of stuff to prove their importance and burn themselves out in the process. This is something we need to learn from Slacker Chad because he has the right mindset when it comes to work, as much as I hate to admit it. So I want you to go and watch this video right now to mentally prepare to save so much time and become more successful.